It's Friday night! It's the preview show! It's the No Nay Never podcast!
Hello and welcome to the midweek preview show brought to you by the No Nay Never podcast. It is not Friday night, it is midweek. I am your host, Natalie Bromley, and joining me as ever is the main man himself, the headliner of the preview show, and that is, of course, Dave Statman Roberts. It's not really, it's Dave Statman Roberts. Hi Dave, how are you?
Hello, I'm very well.
I'm a bit giddy tonight because we are recording this preview show directly after this afternoon's well-earned point and good point against West Ham at home. I think we're a little bit divided, aren't we, Dave? Dave's nodding his head a little bit like, is it a good point? Should we have had 3? Dave, on paper, a side as good as West Ham, who are flying this season, top 4 side, you've got to think that a home point against them is a good point.
We need wins. We need some wins. So I think it's a better point if we win on Wednesday. If we get 4 out of the 2 games, I think we'll be quite happy with that.
But I think the way I look at it is when you look at the points that you're going to get in the season, the wins you're going to have, you'd look at a top 4 side and think we're probably not going to beat them. So if we'd have lost today, that probably wouldn't have defined our season. But a bonus point that we were maybe not expected could well define our season. So I'm not trying to look at it in that sense. Some excellent performances for me. I think there were a couple of players not quite at the races today, but I'm not going to fall into the trap of pointing them out or criticising them at all because we've got to stick together in this, Dave. But I would like to say 2 particular mentions to Ben Mee and Charlie Taylor, who I thought were absolutely excellent.
And Nick Pope.
And Nick Pope, I was going to say. And also Matt Lawton, I thought, had a good game. And I think for me, a player who's come under a bit of fire recently and a bit of stick for no fault of his own, just a perception that perhaps he's not quite up to Premier League just yet. Josh Brownhill, I thought, was very good when he came on. I don't know whether you would agree with that summary.
Yeah, I thought he did the job when he came on. Yeah, definitely.
I did too. And that last 20 minutes, we looked like we were going for it. So yes, I think it's a good point. Listeners, how are we feeling about that game? I know we're a bit down in the dumps at the moment and we are desperately trying to get some wins, but do let us know how you feel about that point. I'm always very interested to hear your thoughts. So do drop us a line on Twitter and let us know. But moving on, Dave, we are, of course, here for other business because it's a fast turnaround. We have got yet another preview show, and which, of course, means we've got another quiz question to give an answer to, which we gave you before we previewed the West Ham game. And the question we left you with was, can you name the 2 players who have played for both Burnley and West Ham United who have scored goals against Burnley for the Hammers since the year 2000, either at home or away? Now, Dave, I failed spectacularly answering this question, so please put us out of our misery and tell us what those answers were.
Well, once again, as you said, there's been a very quick turnaround between us publishing the West Ham United preview show that went out on Friday evening and then recording this episode, which we're doing on Sunday. So there hasn't been much time to receive your answers, but I can reveal the names of the 2 players who played for West Ham and Burnley and scored for the Hammers against Burnley since 2000 were Junior Stanislas. He scored in 2009. That was the away game at West Ham, which they won 5-3, and also Matt Taylor. He scored in a match at Turf Moor in October 2013, and the Hammers won that 2-0, so they were the correct answers.
Excellent. And did we get any correct answers from our lovely bunch of listeners?
We did indeed, yes. John Robertson was lightning quick this week and not only named both players correctly, but he also told us the matches and the scores. Very impressive. Berrien William Jones, who listens to us from Queensland in Australia, also got both names correct. And we also received another reply with the correct answers from Andrew Blythe, who's a Turf Moor regular despite living in Ayrshire in Scotland. So well done to all of them, and indeed to anyone else who knew the answers but didn't send them in to us.
Yeah, and don't be doing that, listeners. If you know the correct answers, send them in. We'll give you a shout out. It seems to me that a certain John Robertson may have had a broadband upgrade this week if he was lightning quick. Maybe Google was working very fast on that one. But congratulations, listeners, to all of you who've got that on there. And do not fret, because we are, of course, going to bring you another quiz question. So you don't have to wait very long. Just don't go anywhere. Stick around to the end of the show and Dave will let you know what you need to answer this week.
Premier League head to head.
And without further ado then, Dave, we have a look at a match review, and that is this coming Wednesday, midweek fixture. Watford at home, Wednesday the 15th of December. My goodness, how are we the 15th of December already? It's a 7:30 kickoff and it's live on BT Sport. We're going to delve into the history of this fixture first, Dave, so why don't you kick us off with previous Premier League meetings?
Yeah, this season, 2021-22, is the fifth season that our paths have met Watford in the top flight in the Premier League era. And in the 4 past matches at Turf Moor, Burnley have won 3 and lost just 1. Watford's only win out of the 4 was by a 3-1 scoreline. In that match in August 2018, ex-Claret striker Andre Gray gave the Hornets an early lead before James Tarkowski hit back with a quick-fire equaliser. However, second-half goals from Troy Deeney and Will Hughes ensured the visitors went away with all 3 points. We're going to mention our 2 1-0 wins now and then keep the 2-0 win back for our memory match. So those 2 wins by a single goal margin, they were in December 2017. Scott Arfield scored just before half-time, not long after Watford's Marvin Ziegler had been sent off. And in June 2020, it was Jay Rodriguez who found the net with a second-half header in a match that was played behind closed doors. Of course, we didn't meet last season as Watford was spending a season back in the Championship before bouncing back at the first attempt.
Indeed.
Memory match.
Memory match then. What have you picked to highlight for this section?
Okay then, for our memory match, let's return to that 2-0 Burnley win we mentioned briefly. That took place early on in the 2016-17 season. Burnley were without striker Andre Gray, who was beginning a 4-match ban for historical comments made on social media. That was shortly after we beat Liverpool 2-0 earlier that season. We took the lead in the 38th minute after Stephen Defoe's corner was headed down by Jeff Hendrick and went through the legs of Sam Vokes and in past Watford goalkeeper Aurelio Gomez. 5 minutes after half-time, we found the net again with another header. This time Stephen Defoe's left-wing cross found Michael Keane, who directed a header in at the B-hole end to double our advantage, and it stayed that way to give us a well-deserved victory. Stephen Defoe was man of the match, and the victory took us up to 13th in the table. We were on 7 points after 6 games.
Oh, the memories. Oh, the memories. If only we were that high up the league as well.
On this day.
So what's happened on this day in previous years?
Oh yeah, quite a lot to go through here. Burnley have won 8 of the previous 19 matches that we've played on the 15th of December. The first match on this date was in the first ever season of the Football League. That was in 1888. Burnley had travelled to Deepdale on the opening day in September, and we'd lost 5-2, but the reverse fixture at Turf Moor on December 15th was closer and ended as a 2-2 draw. We then won our next 3 matches on this date, which were all at home. We beat Stockport 3-1 in the second division in 1900, then a 4-2 win over Hull City in another second division game in 1906, and the third win of the trio was a 2-0 victory that was over Chelsea in a first division match in 1923. 5 years later, in 1928, Sheffield Wednesday were the victors at Turf Moor by a 2-0 scoreline, and then we went and won 3-2 at the Nest in 1934. If you don't know, that was where Norwich City played for many years, before they moved to Carrow Road at the start of the following season. After World War II, our first match on the 15th of December was a 1-0 home win, and that was over Charlton Athletic, but our next 2 matches in 1956 and 1962 were both away defeats at Chelsea and Everton respectively. Our 6th win was a 2-1 home victory over Arsenal in 1973. But 6 years later, we lost 2-0 at Birmingham City as we continued to struggle in the 1979-80 season. In 1984, we managed a 1-1 draw with Swansea City, and 6 years later, we went down 3-2 at Gillingham, with David Crown scoring a hat-trick for the home side. Then there was an infamous 2-1 win at Shrewsbury Town in an FA Cup replay. You may recall this was the match where their manager, John Bond, who'd been at Turf Moor, hadn't been at Turf Moor for the original drawn match, disguised himself as a steward in the stands instead of taking his place in the home dugout. That was back in 1992. Our eighth and final win on this date was a 3-2 victory over Stockport County in 2001, which means we've failed to win any of the 4 matches we played on December 15th in the 20 years since. We lost 3-2 at home to Preston in 2007, with 2 red cards shown to Burnley players. Then there was a 1-1 draw against Watford, our opponents on Wednesday. That was back in 2012. Charlie Austin netted an equaliser from the penalty spot in that match. And then we've had 2 1-0 away defeats. We played Middlesbrough in 2015, and then we lost 1-0 at Spurs 3 years ago in 2018. So to summarise, our overall record for 15th of December is played 19, won 8, drawn 3 and lost 8, with 29 goals for and 30 against.
Good stuff. It doesn't bode very well for this memory match on this day, does it really? It's, but, records are there to be broken, aren't they, Dave? They're there to be broken.
Of course.
Club Connection!
Club Connection, then, please. You have been bringing us focusing on one player who's featured for both teams. And I don't really know who you're going to shine your spotlight on this week, Dave. Who have you chosen?
Well, unlike our last episode, I did at least remember to tweet out a list of players to see which names would come back in our replies, but there wasn't really one name who gained any momentum, with several individuals, including Micah Hyde, Jerry Harrison, and also Gifton Noel Williams and even Alexander Kakleniklic getting a mention. So I've decided to single out the player who was mentioned by Todd Claret. Thanks, Andrew. And that was Clark Carlisle. What's your favourite Clark Carlisle moment, Natalie?
There is absolutely only one answer I can give to this, and that is, of course, his amazing Oscar speech that he gave at Wembley when we just won the playoff final. And I just remember him just saying, "I'm so thankful, I'm so grateful. Look at these magnificent fans." And it was full of emotion. It was full of admiration for us all as a team, and I will never, ever forget that.
You will not be surprised to know that does get a mention in the write-up. So
Thought it might.
I'll crack on and tell you all about Clark Carlisle.
Go for it.
He was born in Preston in 1979 and started his football career with Blackpool. By the time he joined Watford in 2005, he'd also spent time with QPR and Leeds United. And he would also have a short loan spell at Luton before Burnley made a move for the experienced central defender in 2007, while Steve Cottrell was still our manager. But it was under Owen Coyle where we saw the best of Clark Carlisle in partnership with Steve Caldwell, including that memorable 2008-2009 season, which ended with victory at Wembley against Sheffield United. Clark was clearly very emotional when interviewed after the final whistle, weren't we all? But it meant that he would be playing top-flight football with Burnley the following season. He played 28 of the 38 games in the Premier League in 2009-10 and was a regular again the following season after we dropped straight back into the Championship. But after extended loan spells with Preston and Northampton in 2011-12, he moved on for a short spell with York City before ending his playing career with Northampton. In total, he made 152 appearances for Burnley, scoring 8 goals. During his time at Burnley, he was the chairman of the PFA and also appeared on TV quiz programme Countdown, as well as being a panellist on the BBC's Question Time programme. But he also had his off-the-field battles with his mental health, and after being very frank about an earlier attempt to take his own life when he was only 21 in his book and a TV documentary, there were more concerns in December 2014, when he also thankfully survived an accident with a lorry as a pedestrian on the A64 near York. 3 years later, there were more concerns when he went missing before being found safe, and we can only hope that Clark is coping with his personal demons now. However, he will always be fondly remembered for the time he spent at Turf Moor, which culminated in that most memorable of matches at Wembley in May 2009.
Definitely. I mean, Burnley fans have always loved Clark Carlisle, and I echo those words without question, Dave. And we do always. We'll always be welcome at Turf Moor, and he'll always have friends should he need them. We're going to bring you another club connection in our next preview show, which is with the away trip to Villa Park, which, Dave, might be in jeopardy. Did you see on the news coming out tonight? Villa have also had a bit of a COVID catastrophe today as well, so you never know, that might be in jeopardy. But assuming that preview show is going ahead, we will give you more club connections then. But in the meantime, we're going to move away from the history of this particular fixture with Watford, and we're going to bring you right up to date with the present, starting with our scouting report.
Scouting report!
Yeah, Watford are already on to their second manager of the season, and based on the last decade, you wouldn't risk too much money wagering that the current incumbent of the managerial hot seat at Vicarage Road, that's Claudio Ranieri, will last until the end of the season. Watford's summer transfers included 22-year-old central midfielder Imran Louza from FC Nantes for $9 million, 22-year-old goalkeeper Maduka Okeyi from Sparta Rotterdam for $4.5 million, 23-year-old Nigerian striker Emmanuel Dennis was also a bargain £3.6 million buy from Club Brugge, and 32-year-old midfielder Moussa Sissoko arrived from Spurs for just over $3 million. In addition, 26-year-old midfielder Ozan Tufan is also on a season-long loan from Fenerbahce. Since Ranieri took over, they've used 3 at the back against Liverpool in his first match in October, but that ended as a 5-0 home defeat, but they played with a back 4 in every game after that. For their most recent match, which was a 2-1 defeat at Brentford at the weekend, they had Daniel Bachmann in goal, a back 4 of Ngakia, Cathcart, Troost-Ekong and Firmino. Sissoko and Kuka were their holding midfielders, with Tom Cleverley in a more advanced midfield role. Josh King and Cucho played out wide, and Emmanuel Dennis led the line. The Hornets are dealing with several injuries to their squad, and although we are recording this prior to the pre-match press conferences, the likes of Peter Etobo, Ben Foster, Adam Messina, Kwadwo Bar, Ismaila Sarr and Nicholas Nkulu all appear to be ruled out at the present time, with 1 or 2 other doubts as well. Watford striker Emmanuel Dennis is currently their top goal scorer with 7, although Josh King and Ismaila Sarr have each contributed 5 goals so far this season. The trio are also the club's top 3 contributors in terms of FPL points so far this season, and although Sarr is currently out injured, will still need to be very wary of the attacking threat of the other 2 at Turf Moor on Wednesday evening.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we do like to give you a bit of a balanced view on the previous show, and we always like to try and bring you, where we can, an opposition view, which we do have this week. We are delighted to welcome back our friends from the Rookery End, who are going to give us their view ahead of the game.
Opposition view.
Good day, the wonderful people of No Nay Never. It's the gang from Jon from the podcast From The Rookery End. Just to give an update of how we are towards this magical, high-pressured game we're heading to at Turf Moor on Wednesday. You might have seen we've had a terrible run. The results have been absolutely horrendous. But we did play Chelsea and Manchester City and Manchester United and Leicester and Arsenal. It wasn't a pretty run, and it was our hell, which we'd highlighted in many different colours at the beginning of the season, but actually wasn't so bad. There were some great performances in there, and weirdly, remarkably, we left the Chelsea game going, we deserve something out of that. We beat Manchester United, and so we're sort of trying to be positive about this, rather than say we beat Manchester United and we lost all the other games. We drew against Manchester United, Leicester and Arsenal, and then we only happened to lose to Chelsea and Manchester City, and that sort of made us feel quite good about ourselves. It has been not a remarkable turnaround with Ranieri that put those performances in, but he definitely has made the difference in so many simple ways for what was a team of good players that have now become a unit and are playing better together. However, the game against Brentford on Friday was atrocious, and I'm trying to put it down to a few different things. It's always quite fun to try and find the reasons for these problems, because if we can find it, then hopefully Claudia can find it and he can fix them ready for Wednesday evening up at your place. We've had a mixture in midfield. Tom Cleverley, everyone knows about Tom Cleverley, and he may be getting on, but he's still as terrier as he has always ever been. Moussa Sissoko, classy act we've got from Tottenham, something to prove, and he's been fantastic as well. And it's the third one that we felt like caused us some issues. It was the Kuchka, who sort of has a bouncer vibe about him. he was sort of being a bouncer at Brentford. But we also have another player, now be careful with this one, loser, who really hasn't been. We thought he would be, but he hasn't been a loser at all in this recent run of games. Really sort of sitting back at the back of that three, playing the ball, making things happen, keeping the tempo, keeping it fluid. And that's what we lacked with him not playing against Brentford. Our attacking line, be ready for them. Joshua King comes with a good, healthy Premier League history behind him. And from that, his goals at Bournemouth, didn't get any time at Everton when he was there for, 6 months. And now at Watford, he's really trying to prove himself and get himself back up there where he probably thinks he should be. And he's doing some really good stuff. The danger man, the true danger man, you would have thought with Ismail Assar, but he's out long-term injured. But Emmanuel Dennis, who is by far the bargain of the whole Premier League this year. His goals and assist record is pretty spectacular, and he has scored an atrocious number of goals for only £3.5 million. And yeah, he's the one you really want to keep your eye out for the most. And alongside those three up front, you're going to see either the young and energetic and talented João Pedro or the young and energetic and talented Cucho Hernandez. Both will have bleach blonde hair. That's what young, talented and excited players often do. I don't know why. We're slightly older and our highlights are natural, shall we say. So that's what you're going to get in terms of the danger. Your luck is going to be in probably with our defence. It hasn't been fantastic, particularly our centre-back pairing. It's, they were fantastic and they were really good in the Championship. Craig Cathcart, who lots of your listeners probably remember from our last spell in the Premier League, he does what he does and he does it very well. The man alongside him at the moment is William Troost-Ekong, who just has a mistake in him. He has a bad moment somewhere along the line, a dodgy, terrible last-minute dive at a ball against Brentford, which won them the penalty. And the most strangest moment of the season so far, away at Leicester, the ball's played long and he just ducks out of a header. It bounces and James Maddison scores a goal. It wasn't fun to watch and we're still a bit confused about it all. So that's where we are. That's what we're thinking. And you've got your possibilities of you getting some points. But if we can do what we do and we do what we do well, and we put in a performance as we did up at home to Chelsea, you might have to be a little bit scared of the mighty Hornets coming up to Turf Moor. So let's hope for a good game. It is going to be worth a lot of points. No, it won't. It's not a 6-pointer. There's no such thing. But it could be a big win, I think, for both sides in terms of setting themselves up ready for this big, long, hard slog of a run that we have between now and the new year. So let's see what happens on Wednesday at your place. Fingers crossed it's a Hornets win. Tutty bye!
Okay, who's our referee, Dave? Who we got this week?
In charge on Wednesday will be Martin Atkinson of Wakefield. Not many officials have taken charge of more Burnley matches than Martin Atkinson, certainly not in the modern era, apart from perhaps Mike Dean. This will be Martin Atkinson's 30th Burnley game since a 1-1 draw at Crewe. That was way back in February 2005. We've won 13 of his past 29 games as the man in the middle. But if we look at our record just for the Premier League games, we have 11 wins, 6 draws and 6 defeats from 23 matches, which compares very favourably with most other officials. However, Martin Atkinson has taken charge of 3 Burnley matches so far in 2021, 2 of which were earlier this season. We lost all 3 of those games, including the 2 this season, although 2 of them, one last season and one this, were both against Manchester City. In terms of sendings off, there have been 3, 2 to opposition players. They were Nemanja Matic at Chelsea and also Hal Robson-Kanu in a match at Turf Moor, and 1 to a Burnley player, which was Ashley Barnes at Hull City in February 2017. And finally, for this section, Stuart Atwell will probably be the man who turns down a nailed-on penalty for us, even though it's more obvious than any of the ones that have been given in this weekend's matches. Or worse still, decides to rubber stamp a soft one to Watford. Yes, he's the video assistant referee.
Oh, joy. Oh, we're going to need all the help we can get, Dave.
Statman Dave's Stat of the Week.
Well, I know we're not going to leave it there because I know you like to treat our listeners. So why don't you delve deep, deep, deep into those pockets of yours and let us have your miscellaneous stat of the week.
This week's stat relates to our matches against Watford since Sean Dyche became Burnley manager. In total, we've played the Hornets 12 times in all competitions, home and away, since November 2012. And our record is won 5, drawn 5 and lost just 2. In the 6 home games, which includes the meetings in the Championship and the Premier League, Burnley have won 3, drawn 2 and lost just 1. Also, it's worth noting just how many managers have stepped through Watford's revolving doors since they took the decision to sack Sean Dyche in the summer of 2012. At the last count, it's up to 14, I think, excluding caretaker managers, although during that time, Quique Sanchez-Flores has had 2 separate spells.
And I've got to say, listeners, I do wish sometimes, at one stage I should probably release some visuals of our script for the preview show, because some sections I don't look at the script in advance because I like to be surprised. I like to listen to them like you do as listeners. And I scroll down to this week's stat of the week, and there's just a graphic on the right-hand side of a revolving door and just a man going round and round and round. So there you go. The merry-go-round, that is Watford's managers. So how are you feeling about Wednesday, Dave? I think you've already said that. In fact, let's just get this out of the way now. Regular listeners will know that Dave and I often clash about a particular saying. Dave does not believe in this saying, but I do. I'm saying it now. Wednesday is a must-win. Case against Dave? Or do you agree?
I'm saying it's a must-not-lose.
Why? Why is it a must-not-lose?
Because, well, there are 6, maybe 7 teams down there with us, and we're still right in there. It's very, very close between those teams. So what you don't want to do is lose a game and allow teams to get away from it. If you stay in there, then you've still got a chance. Ideally, yes, we'd love to get a win against Watford. Winning against teams around you is the very best way to get yourself up the table and to keep them down. But a draw isn't a disaster, which is why I'm saying it's more of a must not lose than a must win, even though I think we need to do all we can to try and win the game.
I disagree. Yeah, well, I don't disagree what you're saying, but this has to be a must-win game. And the reason for this, Dave, is, and I've said this before, if you get 10 wins in a season, you will probably stay up. I think that tends to be the benchmark. And we are running out of games. Even if we draw, it's not enough. We are not going to survive in this league with the amount of draws we've had. We've had 8 draws already.
We won't need 10 wins.
Do you not think?
We've drawn so many games that the more games you draw, the fewer wins you need. So you might only need 8 wins.
Okay, 8 wins. Well, we need 7. If we look now
Another
at 7 games, we need another 7 wins. And Watford at home, a side who are going to go down if we don't, has to be a must-win. It has to be. What do you think, listeners? Are you on Team Dave or are you on Team Natalie? Is this a must-win or is this a must-not-lose? Do tweet us your opinions on the game, please. You can send us a tweet at @nonenever. You can post a comment on our Facebook page, or you can send us a email at previewshow@nonenever.net. What about team news? A bit of a weird one ahead of the match. We saw on Twitter today by his girlfriend, Dave, that Connor Roberts is in a bad way.
Yes, he's in hospital, I believe.
Yeah, I've heard today. Now, listeners, please do take this with a pinch of salt, because this is not verified. Of course it's not. But the very reliable source, which is some bloke at the ground today, told me that apparently it's food poisoning. It's not COVID related. Apparently it's quite a very severe case of food poisoning. So fingers crossed he is better. Do we have any other injury situations, Dave?
Well, we know Ben Mee came back. He was obviously a late fitness test for the West Ham game, but he made it. He was in there. Ashley Barnes is obviously out for a little while. Connor Roberts certainly won't be playing for a while. There was a late fitness test again on Maxwell Cornet. He obviously didn't start, neither was he on the bench. Perhaps he might be in contention for Wednesday's game. So it's one of those. We're recording it early. Obviously, they won't do the pre-match press conference probably until later on Monday, I'm guessing, for Wednesday's games. We might find a little bit more from Sean Dyche. Obviously, they do broadcast those live now. They're usually on the afternoon roughly about 1:15, 1:30, usually 2 days before the game. So for a Saturday game, it'll be on a Thursday. For a Sunday game, it'll be on a Friday. And I think for a Wednesday game, it'll probably be on the Monday sometime, but after we're recording this.
Okay, good. Well, finish me off then with a score prediction, please, Dave.
Well, after all that's been said, I still think that we're going to win. I'm going to predict a win. I'm going to predict a 1-0 win because I don't think we've got a lot of goals in us. Watford, I don't think have kept a clean sheet since forever. So I think it's going to be tight. I think it'll be a 1-0 win to Burnley.
Yeah, I think we are going to sort our goal. I think it's going to be another Brentford me. I think we'll go out on the attack. I think we'll put this to bed. I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-0 win to Burnley. I'm going to predict that Chris Wood will set us off. Then I think we will have a Ben Mee header, which is sandwiched between that and Max Cornet with a screamer to finish us off and seal the deal. So I've already just told you how you get in touch with us, listeners. Please do let us know your score predictions, the scorers, and how they are going to score. Okay. No Fantasy Premier League this week, I don't think, this midweek, Dave.
No, we're recording this on the Sunday, and obviously with games still having been played, it takes them a little while to get all the tables updated. So what we're going to do, we won't have obviously updates when we do the Aston Villa preview for the midweek games. So we're going to give you the update of the weekend games when we do the Villa preview, and then the preview we do after that, which is... that will actually be the Everton game, won't it? That'll be the Everton game on Boxing Day. When we do that one, we should have another couple of weeks game weeks of updates to do. It does get a little bit difficult over the Christmas period, so forgive us if we don't have an update to do. What we will do is bring you up to speed as soon as we can when the FPL have updated their tables.
Good stuff, good stuff.
Statman Dave's quiz question.
So, instead, we're going to leave our listeners with a quiz question. What are you setting us this week?
Well, this week's quiz question goes back to the stat of the week we mentioned about different managers. And what we want to know is how many different Watford managers has Sean Dyche faced as Burnley manager since taking over at Turf Moor?
Ooh, how do our listeners... Oh, God, that's a difficult one. How many different Watford managers has Sean Dyche faced as Burnley manager since taking over at Turf Moor? I'll give you a clue, listeners. The answer isn't 45 because that would be ridiculous. But listeners, you're going to need to submit an answer this week. And again, you're going to have a very quick turnaround. So Dave, let them know how they submit them, please.
Well, before that, I'm just going to clarify it's for home and away games. So we're just
yes. Okay, well, maybe it is 45 then. Go on, Dave. How do they submit the answers?
Well, you can get in touch with us and let us know the answer using any one of these methods. You can tweet us or send us a direct message, preferably on Twitter. That's @NoNayNever. You can send an email to our dedicated email address for the preview show, which is previewshow@nonaynever.net, or you can also reply to the post for this preview show on either the No Nay Never Facebook page or on YouTube.
Excellent stuff. Very quick comment, actually. Dave just mentioned there that you can leave a comment on our Facebook page. Very quick shout out to Mark Gibbons, who frequently interacts with us via Facebook and email. He always has a go at answering the questions, and he's there every single week. And forgive us, listeners, sometimes we do forget to check Facebook because it's just, I'm just doing it too quickly. So the past couple of weeks, I have forgotten about poor Mark. So... Even though Dave tells you to comment, I have just admitted that I sometimes forget. Not anymore. We will be strict with our Facebook page. So follow Mark Gibbons' lead. Mark actually found the podcast during lockdown, and he said it's helped him through shielding for the last 18 months. So, Mark, we are delighted to have you on board with the No Nay Never family. I hope that you're doing well. Thank you for always interacting with us and sending your answers to us. And keep in touch. We love it. As I've just said, you are going to have to be very quick sending in your answers, as we're going to have another quick turnaround between making this episode available for you to listen to ahead of Wednesday's match and then obviously recording the next episode for the away game at Villa on Thursday evening. So you need to get it to you by Friday. So you're going to need to let us have your answers by Thursday, Dave. Is that when we're cutting it off? 7 p.m. Thursday? Is that the cut-off? 7 p.m. Thursday. That's your call to action, Burnley fans. 7 p.m. Thursday. We're going to reveal the correct answers and anybody who got it right at the start of the next episode. But finally, do we have any community news, Dave?
Just a couple of things. We'd already flagged this up in advance prior to the weekend's match, but new guidelines for outdoor venues with more than 10,000 spectators, so that's all Premier League grounds as well as many in the Football League, they all come into force this week, starting for us with this Wednesday's home game against Watford. The government's Plan B directive is one which the Premier League and its member clubs are required to follow, and so it would certainly be advisable for fans to arrive at Turf Moor earlier than usual due to the extra checks that are taking place, as they're likely to make the period leading up to kick-off much busier than usual. Burnley FC have provided details on their website about what you need to do and links via social media, and there's also, I've seen an updated FAQ they put on since the news was first announced. So it would be as well to carefully read through the guidelines in advance if you're planning to go to Turf Moor on Wednesday. In terms of the Burnley FC and the Community Food Bank matchday collections, the one we had on Sunday, I believe, was the last one before Christmas. I suspect all the other checks that need to be in place around Turf Moor on Wednesday means it's just not practical to have it in place for Wednesday's match against Watford. However, we will try to bring you reminders for future games later in the season once the collections are happening again.
Good stuff. Yeah, me and my dad and Mr. Bromley got spot checked outside Turf today for the new COVID regulations. We had asked to pull over and asked to check our COVID passes. Obviously, it wasn't mandatory today because it's not come into force yet, but they were just trying to, I think, just train everybody and get used to approaching fans and get fans used to being able to produce them. It was quite a timely thing, actually, because my dad couldn't get his to work on his phone. He hadn't dragged the COVID pass into his wallet or his Passes app, whichever phone you use, and couldn't get it up there. And the steward who checked him did warn him and said, you can't let that happen on Wednesday. So they are taking it seriously. Burnley fans do try and make sure that you either have a negative lateral flow if you don't have the pass, or you do have your pass available, because I think they are going to be quite strict with that. So that, I think, is everything. My thanks, as ever, go to everybody who has contributed to making this show, to our friends at From The Rookery End for their opposition view, to Turf Moor Stadium announcer Dominic Walker for his specially recorded preview show announcements, to producer Matt, who once again is balancing a million things to bring us these podcasts, and we're very grateful to him, to Dave Roberts for researching our preview show episodes, getting all of these stats together, and essentially doing a one-man job of making this happen. I love the preview show. I will always love the preview show. And I'm a big fan of Dave Roberts. So thank you, Dave. Last but by no means least, to you, the listener, for downloading and listening to this podcast. Your support is very much appreciated, and we would not be here without you. I'm still not 100% sure what's happening with the analysis show this week. We might wait until after Watford and do something on Thursday and give you a double header on Friday. We might decide to have a few thoughts tomorrow. We had quite a few debates on our WhatsApp group after the game, so we might pull some of those together and have a bit of a chat. I don't know yet. So keep an eye on social media and we'll let you know when the next podcast is out. But Dave and I will be back on Friday night looking ahead to hopefully that away trip to Villa if they don't get obviously in trouble with COVID infections. Let's hope not. That's all we've got time for, folks. I've been Natalie Bromley. This has been the preview show brought to you by the None and Ever podcast. Until next time.